Number 10. What's up with the Henry Stickmin level? So on November 18th, the official Among Us Twitter page shared this photo, giving us a sneak peek at the upcoming 4th map for the game. It said that this level will be bigger than Polis and will contain plenty of new tasks. In the upper left corner, we even get a partial look at the blueprints of the map. Among Us also tweeted about the Game Awards coming on December 10th, hinting that we'll probably be getting some more information about that when the day comes. This level is based on Invading the Airship, a game from the Henry Stickmin series by Puffballs, which you can check out on the official Among Us website. The two crewmates shown in the image are wearing accessories that pay homage to Henry Stickmin characters. Here is the airship as it's shown in the Henry Stickmin game. The complete collection of Henry Stickmin games is available on Steam if you want to go and take a look and dig around for some more secrets. It's a fun little point and click adventure with multiple endings. Before I hit number 9, you guys are acting kinda sus, so hit that like button so we know that you're not an imposter. Number 9. Why do so many streamers play this game? Among Us is seriously popular with streamers. At any given time, there are thousands of people streaming this game. When Pokimane streamed this game with AOC, they pulled in a ton of viewers. More recently, during a stream, AOC raised $200,000 for charity. In the early days, this game was streamed by a dude named Soda Poppin, who helped the game rise to popularity. It's just the perfect game for streaming. Your audience will love watching you whether you win or fail, as being the imposter creates this great nefarious feeling, but being a crewmate also creates this nice sense of camaraderie. It's the kind of game that goes down easy and is very accessible, so even the uninitiated can enjoy watching it streamed. Number 8. Why isn't this game on console yet? This one is extra scary because the game might not actually come to consoles at all. Among Us relies heavily on player communication, with players using Discord or other apps to voice chat with one another and figure out who the imposter is. For the developers to properly implement player communication on console, they would need to overhaul the game to include an in-game chat, kind of like in Rocket League, where you use the D-pad to activate different preset chat options. So you could just press up to say red is acting sus. Developer Inner Sloth has considered doing this, but they haven't released any official statement on the status of a console version other than stating that they are considering it. Number 7. What's up with all the hackers? If you played this game back in October, you might have run into hackers at some point. On October 23rd, Eurogamer did an interview with someone who claimed to be responsible for the rampant bot attacks that were happening in the game. The bots were spamming in-game chat with promos for the hackers' Discord channel and some controversial messages. The Discord server in question was found to be full of not safe for work content. In the interview, the hacker claims to have created the bot responsible for the hacks in only 6 hours and claimed the hack impacted up to 4.9 million players. Given this statement, it's likely that the game simply wasn't that complicated for a hacker to exploit. Recently, Inner Sloth has stated that they're doing the work and addressing these hacking vulnerabilities for the future. Number 6. What are the crewmates? It's pretty obvious right away that the imposters are aliens, but even the regular crewmates are pretty questionable looking. The crewmates all have a backpack with no clear use, and more importantly, don't show any blood or organs upon death, just a single large bone. Furthermore, they have no visible hands, and the medbay scanner states crewmates are only 3 feet 6 inches tall, much shorter than a human. Perhaps most interesting is that at a height of 3'6" and weighing 92 pounds, all the crewmates have a BMI of 36.7, which according to the CDC equates to class 2 obesity in humans. The CDC did not respond to our offer to comment on this. It's been theorized that the extra weight could be from the spacesuit or could just be the healthy weight of whatever species the crewmates are. Definitely not human. Number 5. Why do imposters report dead bodies? One of the most important mechanics in this game is reporting dead bodies. As a crewmate, you might want to report bodies right away so that any nearby crewmates don't get suspicious of you and just vote you out by accident. But you can also be suspected of self-reporting. This is when an imposter kills and then reports it immediately. Sometimes imposters make these reports and it's just really hard to tell the difference. Imposters will report dead bodies because it resets everything. Everyone gets teleported to the main room for voting and other dead bodies are removed, making it useful to report on yourself or work in tandem with another imposter. Reporting a body also stops any sabotage that is currently happening, which takes some suspicion off of you if you're the imposter. Number 4. How did this game get so popular? Now for the real mystery. How did this game get so popular? With simple graphics and repetitive gameplay, this thing went relatively unnoticed at launch. It seems like the game just happened to be out there at the perfect time, in the early days of COVID when we were all desperately seeking the next distraction. The deception and detective work really raise the stakes, but the tasks are like little mini games that help keep things fun and remind me of games like Mario Party or Jackbox Games. This game definitely benefits from its cute art style that puts it right in the same niche as Fall Guys and Fortnite, but it was ultimately the growing number of streamers experiencing massive growth as a result of streaming that helped the game rise to success. It also really helps that the game is available on mobile. It's massively popular all around the world with a huge player base in many different countries. Love it or hate it, Among Us isn't going away anytime soon. Number 3, Hide and Seek. This one is neat. Hide and Seek was a demo, testing some features that were planned to appear in Among Us 2. Hide and Seek was released in beta and tested on the Innersloth Discord server. It requires 10 people to start, and the high scores are tallied inside the channel. The servers for the game are still up, but the Discord channel is private now, so you can't even play Hide and Seek. The demo had 10 players running around a maze-like green map with walls and stuff, finding a nice little spot to hide and pressing a button to drop a ghost there. Once the game starts, players run around the map trying to find each other's ghosts. Whoever finds the most ghosts wins the game. It's a pretty simple concept, but it was probably pretty fun and exciting for die-hard fans of the game that were in the Discord channel. It's a nice reminder that the developers are still hard at work and there's a lot more to look forward to. Number 2, what does Mira do? Mira is an organization within the game, and their headquarters serve as the setting for the second level. The crewmates seem to work for Mira, collecting samples from other planets, traveling back and forth in the dropship shown in the trailer and in the level's map. It seems like Mira is just a classic sci-fi organization consisting of scientists and astronauts, but who knows? Perhaps Mira inadvertently created the imposters during their alien research, or just discovered them out in space. Either way, I love this level. The facility is very reminiscent of the game Prey from 2017, and it'll likely be quite a while before we learn any more about Mira, but there's some great fan theories out there. Will Innersloth add new roles? With the surging popularity of this game, everyone is wondering what direction the game is going to go in next. Lots of players are speculating on Reddit and on other forums about potential new gameplay mechanics that could be added. Here's a couple we really like. The Detective. This player would be tasked with finding and killing the imposter. The tricky thing being, there's a chance of them accidentally killing the wrong person. This type of thing would totally get you voted off with no chance of saving yourself. Worse, an imposter could witness you killing someone and then report you. This would be super fun, and I can totally imagine imposters starting to be like, no bro, I'm just a detective, that's why I killed him. Another one is the Jester. This one is a bit harder to wrap your head around. The objective for this player would be to trick other players into voting them off. I can see how this would create some weird and funny moments during the game, but it kind of takes the fun out of everyone's sails when you get the kind of game over that this character would cause. Number 10. What do the imposters want? It's been confirmed that the imposters are parasitic alien shapeshifters, but what do they want? The imposters leave behind bodies and choose not to eat them, meaning they must have some motive beyond just killing and assimilating. They are obviously intelligent as they can perform sabotage on advanced technology and can blend in with the crewmates. Their vision is unaffected during the dark light sabotage, meaning they can also see in the dark without any problem. It's suspected that the imposters are trying to conquer the crewmate species, or maybe they're just killing for sport. This would be supported by the fact that they don't kill pets that the crewmates have and just leave them sitting there. They could be trying to sabotage the crewmates altogether, or steal the secret research collected by Mira. Number 9. Who or what are the imposters? In sci-fi horror, a big part of the fun is speculating on what happened to the crew, or where did the aliens come from, and Among Us is no exception. On the official website, the aliens are defined as parasitic shapeshifters, likely drawing inspiration from movies like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where aliens assimilate your loved ones and it's nearly impossible to tell who's real and who's an alien. There's actually a movie called They Are Among Us that was released in 2005. Several artists have drawn up concepts on the exact anatomy of an imposter, but we haven't yet received an official look like this nightmare the people from Fall Guys gave us a while back. The exact nature of the imposters may never be fully revealed, but it sure is fun to wonder. Some folks suspect the alien imposters could have come from the planet Polis, the third map to be added to the game. Number 8. Why is it so much better being the imposter? Among Us is super fun, but lots of people really prefer to be the imposter. Some players even just leave matches if they don't get to be the imposter. This is simply because it's more fun to be on the nefarious side. Playing as the imposter comes with the natural thrill of deception, and nothing gets your blood racing like someone else being suspicious of you. On a review of the game from Rock Paper Shotgun, they say that playing as the imposter is a lot more fun than being a crewmate, which can be exhausting. It's definitely stressful trying to rush around and finish tasks when there's a killer on the loose. I think that the best reason is, it's just hilarious watching everybody around you point fingers when you secretly know it's you that's the imposter. Number 7. What officially inspired Among Us? Among Us has been compared with many games including Werewolf and Secret Hitler, but it's actually Mafia that is originally credited as the inspiration. Originally, the game was actually a mobile-only local multiplayer game with a single map. It also originally had no audio to avoid revealing any hidden information to other local players. The game was originally released under the name Space Mafia. They had literally 50 players max and considered abandoning the game multiple times during its development. Among Us has been credited and praised for creating a fun new variation of the classic deception genre. Number 6. Why is electrical so dangerous? In Among Us, there's a vision mechanic that makes it so you can only see what's within your cone of vision. Because of this, it's important to stick with a buddy that you can trust, or to just move as a group. But if you feel like you're alone, there are some places that you'll never feel safe. Electrical is set up in such a way that it just ain't safe. This room only has one entrance, and it's deep enough that if you do run into trouble, other crewmates aren't even going to be around to witness your death, unless they happen to be literally walking by the entrance to the room. Never go into electrical alone. Number 5. All the maps are free now, so why buy DLC? So on mobile devices, this game is free, and on PC, it costs $5. It's actually on sale right now for 20% off. On the mobile version, there are ads, but the PC version has more cosmetic options. So why would you buy the DLC? All the maps are available for free now, but you could still pay for the DLC to unlock some cosmetics. These guys have made millions at this point, so really you'd just be buying to show your support or to say thank you, but I recommend it. Far too often games don't get the support that they need, with stuff like Warframe endlessly losing players despite constant updates, and games like Red Dead Online having a massive player base even though most of the updates have been... Number 4. What inspired this game? Among Us has come a long way. Originally a $5 indie game, it had a huge surge in popularity into the global phenomenon we are now discussing. According to Steam, at one point 388,000 people were playing the game simultaneously. That's not even counting the people playing on mobile. Among Us was inspired by games like Mafia, Secret Hitler, and Werewolf. I'm sure you played them at a party or something. Social deception games where you try to identify the traitor. The great thing about Among Us is they've taken the tried and true concept of deception games and put their own original spin on it. I'd be willing to wager that we're probably going to see a board game or card game version of Among Us coming out soon, which would ironically be closer to Werewolf or Mafia in its gameplay. Number 3. Why is it called Among Us? This game was originally called Space Mafia, as it's based on the basic principles of Mafia, but how did they end up with this name? I read online that the name is actually the product of a name generator. We find it a little too hard to believe. The name is just kind of too perfect, but we're here to provide information and speculation. How do people detect imposters so fast? In Among Us, all the crewmates are given a list of tasks to work on. Some take quite a while, and some of them only take a second. There are some tasks that are perfect for proving your innocence, as they have a visual element referred to as visual tasks. Examples of this are tasks like submit scan or clear asteroids. When you do these tasks, players can literally see you doing the scan or see your laser blasting the asteroids, proving without a doubt that you are a real crewmate. Imposters, however, also have a list of tasks for them to be faking, and this is where the magic happens for those super keen detective crewmates. See, some tasks are shared by all, like the swipe card task, meaning if you have that task, you can be sure that all the crewmates will be doing it at some point. But if you ever see a crewmate doing a simple task like swipe card, but you don't have that task on your list, you can be pretty much positive that you're looking at an imposter who is faking a task. Getting familiar with the ins and outs of these tasks is the secret key to detecting imposters. Number 1. What happened to the planet Polus? The planet Polus is introduced in the 3rd level of the game. It's a purple planet with molten core and icy blizzards on the surface. Mysteriously, it has a huge chunk missing from it, exposing the lava within, the magma. With facilities housing a specimen room, it's easy to make the connection that perhaps Mira discovered some alien stuff here they thought was worthy of investigation. Perhaps the damage to the planet was just naturally occurring in the form of extreme earthquakes. That would make sense given the presence of seismic stabilizers on the Polus base. The frequent use of drills to extract specimens could also explain the giant hole in the planet's surface. The name of the planet itself, Polis, is actually an Easter egg in reference to Polis Petrovich, a man from the Henry Stickmin games who won a sweepstakes allowing him to name a planet after himself. Number 10. What are the weather nodes? On the Polis map, there are 6 different locations with nodes, dark blue cones on metal cylinders. These are weather nodes used in the Fix Weather Nodes task. These nodes have a similar look to a Tesla coil, and you can see at the bottom of the screen when you're doing the task that they are indeed manufactured by Mira. It's suspected that these nodes are being used by Mira to collect data and study the weather on Polis, but it's also been suggested that perhaps the nodes are there to facilitate weather manipulation. Perhaps Mira is attempting to terraform the planet? This would work well alongside the theory of aliens coming from Polis and the crewmates being an invasive species. What do you think? Number 9. What happened to Tan? You might not recognize him, but Tan was originally one of the many color options in the game. Tan is referenced in the Henry Stickmin game called Completing the Mission. In that level, you have to find all the different crewmate colors and put them into slots, but when you find Tan, his slot is punched out, referencing the fact that the color was removed from Among Us. But why? Well, the color was retired due to being mistaken for other colors by people with color blindness. It's just a little bit too close to brown or white. Unlike the color Fort Green mentioned in our last video, Tan can never be used, even if you mess with the game's code. The only remnants of Tan exist now on the Inner Sloth Discord server. Number 8. What do the crewmates eat? Anytime I'm getting really deep and immersed in a game, I'm always reminded of this video I saw where this guy does a breakdown comparing Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3. He states one fundamental aspect of realism in a game is found by asking, what do they eat? As any game with world building and settlements will have stuff like bathrooms and a kitchen and other little creature comforts that humans have. Now, other than emergency meetings, we never really get to meet up and have lunch in Among Us, so what's up with the cafeteria? Where does the food come from? Is there like a food dispenser somewhere, or were we supposed to pack lunch before takeoff? I know there's a vending machine on the one map and a slice of pizza, but other than that, I mean, we can't have one pizza going around for everybody. What do you guys think the crewmates eat? Let me know in the comments and we'll discuss it in the next video. Number 7. Why is Red always sus? The scary thing about Red being sus is sooner or later you're gonna have to play as Red. This is a real phenomenon as evidenced by some random stuff I found on the internet. There's a couple different reasons for this. First, Red appears in 6 different promotional images for the game, almost always as the imposter stabbing somebody or something. Psychologically, red is a color associated with power or danger, so naturally the red crewmate rouses your suspicions. The idea was incepted into your head. In real life, red cars usually have higher insurance premiums as well, meaning we're all in agreement that red just can't be trusted. None of this stuff is justifiable or based in real logic, but it might make you feel a little better if you join the game as red and get ejected right away. Number 6. How did the game attract so many players? Among Us is a phenomenon. I cannot overstate how popular this game is. They peaked at around 3.8 million players in September, and the servers are actually overloaded at one point, requiring some serious crunch time updates. In August, Inner Sloth opened a merch store that was sold out within weeks. The combination of COVID keeping us at home, streamers boosting the game's popularity, and it just being a hot take on a classic formula makes this game the recipe for success. Among Us is worldwide with multiple servers and various languages supported. The game even has colorblind options. It's a great example of a developer maximizing the potential of a game. Number 5. What's going on with this green dude? Sometimes in a particularly glitchy lobby, you might see this guy, an off-color green dude with 3 question marks above his head. It's supposed to only appear for a split second when a player is loading into the game, but sometimes glitched players are stuck with this guy, who's not green or lime, but is called Fort Green. Some other weird facts about this guy? If he's killed, the body shows up as red. Pretty sus. Also interesting, if you scan this guy in the med bay, he weighs 132 pounds instead of the usual 92. He also is the only crewmate with blood type AB+. Luckily, none of the crewmates ever need a blood transfusion. This mystery is basically just a glitch, but it's pretty neat. Number 4. Why so many customizable settings? In Among Us, there are a ton of settings you can mess with, including player speed, voting time, kill cooldown, imposter vision, and more. Why so many? Well, games can be played with a variety of players, and the vanilla settings are not always the best. For example, when playing with 10 players, you'll likely want to have 2 imposters to prevent the session from ending a little too quickly. It's all about creating the kind of game that you want and balancing things to find what's best. Mostly, you'll just mess around with the discussion time depending on the size of the group. But if you do like to host games, I definitely recommend doing a search online to find the best settings for the number of players that you have. It'll greatly enhance your experience. Number 3. What happened to Among Us 2? In August, Inner Sloth announced that they were working on a sequel to the game, as the original game's code wasn't really set up to support ongoing updates and changes. During this time, some new servers and regions were added to the game, but in September, the sequel was cancelled. They opted instead to put in the work, make adjustments to the first game's code to make the planned content from the sequel fit in there, because the first one was becoming hugely popular. This was probably a great move on their part, as in the past we've seen games like Dead Frontier launch a sequel that only spreads the developer thin as they try to keep up updating both games at the same time. There are much more updates to Among Us coming down the line, including improved gameplay for ghosts, customizable controls, a friends system, and even more player colors. Number 2. What's all this junk? So there's a task in Among Us called Empty Garbage, known as Empty Chute on the Skeld. Sometimes doing this task you'll notice some strange items in there with the garbage. I mean, the garbage itself is already kind of weird. Is it leaves? Leaves in space? Like sucked up by the thrusters on takeoff or something? Anyway, sometimes in there you will notice a totem of undying, which you recognize from Minecraft, and sometimes you can also find a teleporter or a diamond just mixed in there with the trash. These items are actually in reference to the Henry Stickmin games, another game developed by Inner Sloth. Has this game won any awards? Yes. This game recently won the Breakthrough Award at the Golden Joystick Awards and is also nominated in 2 categories at the upcoming Game Awards on December 10th. Inner Sloth has also stated that they'll be making an exciting announcement on this day. Among Us is nominated for Best Mobile Game and might actually win over PUBG, since the game was recently banned in India earlier this month. However, I expect Genshin Impact is probably going to take that award, as it's also surging in popularity and free on mobile like Among Us.
Who are the spacemen? What planet are they from? What do these maps mean? Where do the imposters come from? Well, I'm your host, Chaydarena, and today we're going to be exploring all of these questions with the true story of Among Us, Unsolved Mysteries. So let's start with who you play in Among Us. We know that you are either a crewmate or an imposter. Now, the crewmates are officially little astronauts that are tasked with doing things on their ship to keep it flowing. Their ship is known as the Skeld, and they want to keep it running so they can make it back home. Home being Mira HQ, which is another map in the game. It would seem that all of these little space dudes work for Mira, an organization that has very advanced technology for deep space travel, and our space dudes are scientists tasked with exploring the deep dark reaches of the galaxy. Maybe even further. It's unknown how advanced their technology is, but I'm going to guess that because most of the manual labor tasks need to be performed by individuals and it isn't completely automated by AI, that we're staying within our own galaxy. But are these astronauts human? From the official website, we know that the astronauts are trying to return to civilization, but it's never clarified if civilization is Earth or an alien planet. Now, there are a lot of things that would make me suspect that our little interstellar dudes are human. While completing tasks on the ship, you have to keep the oxygen working, so these dudes need oxygen to breathe. They have blood types just like humans. They even have vending machines just like us. I mean, we haven't made contact with alien races publicly yet. I don't know if vending machines are a universal standard. But there is one key thing that sets these crewmates apart from a regular person: their size. They clock in at only 3 feet 6 inches tall and 92 pounds. That is a very small person, or even a child. So my theory on this is that because space travel takes so long, the people who get sent into space are actually children. This way they don't have to waste their entire lives on a spaceship, and they have a much lower chance of dying from an age-related illness. Like if you're 45 and you spend 20 years on an expedition in space, you might not make it back. I have 2 theories on why shooting kids into space would be ethical. In the future where Among Us takes place, they might have found a way to jumpstart the brain to get people to achieve an adult level of intelligence before they are actually in an adult body. Or they create clones and transfer the consciousness of an older person into a younger clone shell. That way you can have the body of someone young and healthy and put in the mind of a wise sage. That would be the ideal situation. I'm leaning to more the second option because I think that would be something people would actually want in the future, to keep themselves alive in a young body with the mind of their old self. This would also help with spacing. If you could build smaller spaceships and still still fit everyone on board, then you could save on supplies and still get the same amount of research done. If this theory is correct, I would also say that they stunt the growth of these juvenile clones so they don't outgrow their surroundings while they're out in space. It would be hard to get a bunch of new clothes and a new bed while you're floating around in the deep dark void. Now onto the imposters. The imposters are parasitic shapeshifters that take the form of crewmates and try to take them out one by one until there's only them and another crewmate left. Now, how did they get on the ship? Well, the common thought is that the crew on the Skeld landed on an alien planet and the imposter took out one of the crew members, took their place, and then snuck on board. But there is no evidence that the Skeld actually landed on an alien planet before making contact with the imposter. The Skeld is in space, and for both of the other maps, Mirror HQ and Polis, they mention imposters. For Mirror HQ, they say that there shouldn't be as many imposters there, and for Polis, they say that the planet should be untouched by imposters, meaning that you and your crew knew about the imposters before venturing there from the original expedition where they got infected. Therefore, they couldn't have come from either of these locations, but were brought back on the Skeld, which might have never touched down on an alien planet. So the imposters might be much more powerful than just a shapeshifter. The imposters could have boarded the ship while they were still in space. Now, how could this have happened? Well, the people on board the Skeld could have brought on an asteroid or some other substance from the vacuum of space to examine it, and the parasite was alive and then infected the first person to come in contact with it. But what if, like most parasites, the imposter works by sending out a large quantity of itself to infect an area, like cholera, which is a bacteria. It will infect a water source to spread as far as possible, and then when people drink the water, they are infected. What if the imposter parasite sends out spores into space that can work their way through solid material, like a ship, or if someone was out doing a spacewalk, it could get in through your suit. This could mean that the parasite could survive in the vacuum of space. But how do they work their way through solid material? Well, there is an old Among Us question, that is, how come the imposter can vent and no one else can? Some say it's because they are shapeshifters and they can squeeze through the vents, which makes sense. But transportation through vents is instantaneous. There's also been theories that the imposter can make small, short distance portals that it can use to teleport through, and it's only using the vents for cover so the cameras can't see them. That's why travel is instantaneous. This could be how the imposter got onto the ship in the first place. These small spores might be able to make short distance portals as well. That might not be able to make it through the ship, but like I said before, could make it through your spacesuit during a spacewalk. Also, as the imposter, you are fine with turning off the oxygen, so you clearly don't need it to live, and that adds to my theory that the imposter can survive in the vacuum of space. And if we're really breaking things down, what is Among Us based off of? Now, there hasn't been an official statement from Innersloth, the developers of the game, but it's a pretty common consensus that the game is based off the 1980s hit The Thing. There's a lot of movies that involve aliens taking a human form and then killing off a bunch of people, but The Thing really captures all the elements of Among Us. You have someone who is infected and everyone knows, but no one knows who it is. You have people debating on who it could be and turning on each other. You have a shape-shifting parasite that is able to blend in and assimilate with everyone there as it tries to take them out one by one, and finally you have one of the kill animations that has a big toothy mouth open up. That looks very similar to this. So I think it's safe to say that this movie was an inspiration for the game. Now, where do they find the parasite in The Thing? Well, it's frozen in ice, and they think it could have been dormant there for 100,000 years. So if these two monsters are the same or similar, they could survive in harsh conditions with no air, food, or resources for a possibly infinite amount of time, which adds to my theory of the imposter being able to survive in space and spread like spores throughout the galaxy. This imposter could be one of the most powerful creatures in existence, looking to assimilate everyone back into their bubble. I mean, if we go back into the descriptions of the map, both Mirror HQ and Polis are supposed to be free of the parasite, but they're already there. Now, this could be the fault of the crewmates. Maybe they're infected and bringing it around to all these spaces, but I don't think that's the case at all. If we start to piece all these things together, we have something that seems much darker. I think Mira has gone on the deepest expedition ever and come in contact with this parasite that isn't an isolated case, but has infected a better part of the galaxy. They just live so far away from it, they never had any word of this creature before. The reason the crewmates are so small is because the consciousness of an older astronaut was transferred into people in a fetal state, and then they were sent out into space. They wouldn't even be fully functioning and emerge from their tubes until they were a few years years into the trip, and they wouldn't even be the size they are in the game until 5 to 10 years into the trip. They went so deep into space that they found a new life form that is the dominant life form in that part of the galaxy and is going to absorb them just like it absorbs everything else. When you return to Mirror HQ, it's not on Earth, but it's an outpost that was built in deep space to perform this deep expedition, and now you have brought it back with you, or it was there before you even knew it. The imposter is a massive spore-like hive mind similar to the disease in The Last of Us, but it can survive in space, it's much smarter, and there's no winning the game. It's already made it back with you, and it's too late. Among Us is one of the biggest games in the world, but there's still no word as to what the official lore is. That's pretty sus. So fans have started to create their own version of the lore, and for today's Among Us Unsolved Mysteries, we are going to get into the map Polis. Hello gamers, I'm your host Chaydarena, and let's get right into it. So Polis seems to be a far off planet that's within telescopic distance of Mirror HQ. The astronauts that are possibly human people things that you play have built a base there. The planet is a very hostile place before we even bring in the fact that there's an alien parasite that's constantly trying to murder you as you scamper around and try and find out who the killer is. Polis seems to be a nearly uninhabitable planet just from the frozen temperatures that you will be exposed to on the planet's surface, and not to mention there's a massive hole in the planet that exposes a molten core that is constantly pumping out fresh hot lava. I mean, the place kinda needs to make up its mind. Are you trying to be Hawaii? You're trying to be Antarctica. Am I supposed to bring board shorts and a new Tommy Bahama t-shirt, or do I need to get a parka and some waterproof thermal Blundstones? And if you don't believe me and think that this would be a great place to settle down, let me tell you that these little spacemen don't even think so, because there's no cafeteria on the planet, because it's probably not even comfortable enough to stop and eat on. But there could be another reason why there's no cafeteria on this mysterious planet, but I will get to that later on in the video. Now, why have our space cadets traveled down to this planet? Well, there are a few different theories about this. If you look through the telescope on Polis back at Mirror HQ, you will see that the planet is kind of bunk. It's all brown and gray, and it looks like it's surrounded by some sort of smog. You don't want your home planet to have a giant layer of smog around it like it's the candy layer around a Tootsie Pop, and that joke is a little too real because our planet is dying and I gotta stay focused. So some people think that the expedition to Polis could have been for terraforming purposes. They went there, it was too cold, but still inhabitable. They just needed to spruce the place up a little bit, so they cut a massive hole into the middle of the planet and started digging. They got to that hot, gooey center, and that was the material they needed to start to take control of the planet. There's a second theory that even though Mirror is covered in a gross gas, they aren't quick to leave. They wear the spacesuits all the time so they can survive in that environment, and that's just normal for them. That's like us wearing clothes. The reason that they came to Polis is because a massive asteroid came down and smashed into the shell of the planet. The asteroid is what created the massive hole that makes the lava pop out and spill all over the surface of the planet. It doesn't really spill anywhere, but you guys get what I'm getting at. But the asteroid was full of some good old-fashioned valuables. We don't know exactly what could have been the motivation to come to this planet, but it could have been purely profit. The space dudes wanted to come there and make money off of the rare metals that were still intact in the asteroid. They wanted to mine the thing. When the crewmates got there, they started digging and they found the parasites, which later become the imposter. There are some hints towards that when you get into the specimen room. There are what seems to be parasitic organisms that are floating in some sort of fluid. These could be samples that the spacemen have been collecting to study, and during some of their investigations, someone got infected. Well, that is one idea, but there's also the idea that during whatever mission it was where the skeleton got infected, the imposters took over the ship. They then took it back to Polis. They reported back to the main base on Mirror that they founded a new planet to terraform, and they started to do so. They started building bases and were now inviting people from Mirror to Polis to help them build it, but it was really a trap. In this scenario, Polis is the homeworld of the imposter, and they knew that if they built the base there, they could convince the people from Mirror to start to come there in droves. So every time someone lands there, they are coming right into a trap. All the research that's being done on the parasites in the specimen room is being performed by other imposters because they want to make their race stronger. This is why there's no cafeteria. There is no need for people to sit and eat. The people coming there are the food. The imposters wouldn't even think to build a cafeteria because it's not something they would ever use. A simple oversight because they are an alien race and they didn't know any better. But there is something about this that seems a little off. I mean, we have the idea that the imposters are the bad guy. Well, it's because it seems like they are killing everyone and they want to disable the ship and destroy everything around them. So it is a little bit justified. That seems like criminal behavior if you ask me. But let's look at this a little differently. What if the whole thing starts on Mira? We know that the planet is covered in smog, so let's say that the smog is some sort of toxic gas and the planet is about to die. That's why the crewmates always wear spacesuits. We have already covered this. They need to find a new place to live, and they find Polis. This seems like it would be the perfect new homeworld. The only problem is there is a parasite on it that seems to be quite dangerous. So the space dudes go to Polis, and the first thing they do is attack. They blow a hole in the side of the planet, thinking that the heat escaping from the Earth's core will wipe out the parasites because of the massive change in environment. And for the most part, it does. It creates enough room for the space dudes to come in and start experimenting on the imposter parasites. They build a whole base there, and in the specimen room they host evil experiments on what they assume is a brainless parasite, but it's actually the native creature that is the dominant race on the planet. Now normally these parasites don't take over hosts unless they need to for survival or they're under attack. One brave parasite manages to take over the body of one of these spacemen and then goes on a selfless mission to try and stop the Skeld from returning to its homeworld to get more troops to come back and continue to terraform the homeworld to the point where they can't live on it anymore. So he gets on board and starts to sabotage the ship, but he gets caught. He then has to kill the person who saw him destroying the ship so they could stop them from telling everyone that they were actually an imposter. Then the investigation ensues. They throw out the wrong guy and the imposter has to lay low. They fix the ship and he makes it all the way back to Mira. Because remember, if all the tasks get done but the imposter doesn't get thrown out, you still win the game. So now this guy is on a deadly mission to save his home planet from ensuing destruction, and he has failed. They got back and they're going to gear up with a full army to come and take over Polis. But he refuses to quit. He can't let every last person he knows die. So he continues to grind away and try and stop these monsters from coming back to his homeworld, and he starts infecting people on Mira and fighting back against these evil aliens. While back on his homeworld, the parasites are doing the same thing. They are fighting the good fight to keep their planet free and theirs. What a flip that would be. The imposters are actually the good guy and they're trying to keep their planet safe. That would really change up how we look at the game. The question now is, how does the airship play into all of this?
Is Among Us set in the future of the same world as Henry Stickmin? Are they two separate mirror worlds but in the same universe? And if they're related, why do we have two very different looking kinds of main characters? What does being an imposter versus being a stick person mean? Join me as we explore this and more and find out. Where do we even begin with this video? Okay, so there is actually just so much convincing evidence and Easter eggs that help to tie these two video games together, implying that they are in fact in the same universe. Let's start with something simple, some little things that happen to have greater implications. The diamond and the teleporter. When you get to empty the trash in the Skeld map, there are a variety of things that you can see being dumped through there. A few of these things tie us specifically to the world of Henry Stickmin, the diamond and the teleporter. The teleporter is an object that Henry frequently uses in attempts to pull off heists and great escapes. And yeah, it doesn't always work great, but sometimes it does. The diamond, on the other hand, is something we see him attempt to steal in the game. The question is, were these objects brought here, or are these just items that are Easter eggs left by game designers and developers who are fans or worked on the Henry Stickmin series? These are the questions. If we entertain the notion that this is no coincidence and more than just tribute items placed here to honor the Stickmin franchise, it is possible that Henry has been on the Skeld before, or perhaps even that he is one of those among you. Perhaps he's a crewmate, or perhaps Henry himself is the imposter. We never get to see the faces beneath the suits, but it is possible that Henry is one of the characters being played on your ship, and you just don't know it yet. It would definitely be cool to see Henry go on some space adventures, but why would he ever throw away a diamond? And if you think that Skeld is the end of it, you'd be wrong. There are items littered everywhere, and even ones that appear more specific in terms of the Henry Stickmin franchise than the more generic diamond. In the cafeteria on the Mira HQ map, you may notice when performing the buy beverage task some familiar items and brands from the Henry Stickmin verse, which is pretty surprising, I gotta say. For one, there is the energy drink, which looks identical to the ones found in the Henry Stickmin games. So if these games are somehow not in the same universe, then they must have some kind of, I don't know, multiversal supplier for these energy drinks to be there in terms of it making sense in regards to lore. In escaping the prison, the drink gives you super speed and strength, but will eventually kill you. Because yeah, energy drinks, your heart, it's not so good. But maybe the race of beings we play as in Among Us have heartier hearts, or the imposter has made sure to have this drink stocked, hoping that it will kill the crew. We also have the Don Dew present in the vending machine, another drink from the world of Henry Stickmin. Do the Don Dew. Henry Stickmin Don Dew is one of the brands that appears, so it's interesting to see it also turn up in Among Us. Is this inner sloth once again trying to remind us, even on the Mira HQ map, that these two games actually take place in the same universe? The two games are like, it's like that picture of God, you know what I mean? And man, they're like touching down at each other. Among Us is like, I see you, Henry. Maybe vice versa, I don't know. Maybe vice versa since Henry came first, I believe, so yeah. Beyond small but very specific objects, we have also seen bigger connections in terms of characters and lore even. Like this minor guard character shows up briefly in the Henry Stickmin games. This character only plays a minor role in the Henry Stickmin game Fleeing the Complex. You may recognize him as one of the guards at the wall who you can see momentarily chasing after others during the massive riot scene which is started by Henry and his ally Ellie. So, how did a guard get involved in Among Us? We don't know any guards that appear in the game, do we? When have we seen any appear or been hinted at? What are you talking about, Amanda? While this guard does not show up in Among Us specifically, he does have a strong tie to the world. In his bio, it's revealed that he won a contest of sorts and was able to name a planet after himself. His name? Polis Petrovic. The name of the map itself, named for the planet it happens to be on? Polis. What? In other words, Polis is the name of the planet that was named after Polis Petrovic, the guard, because he won the contest. But what is the purpose of the planet? Is it related to the wall? Or was this contest unrelated to Polis's work and something completely different? Is Polis in charge of the planet? There are just so many questions I have. We can assume though, if Polis got to name the planet after himself, that he would at least be involved somewhat in whatever is happening there. Or perhaps the contest was a cover to allow the planet to be given a name unrelated to all the twisted experiments that are happening there. Basically giving those who really control it and the experiments a scapegoat of sorts. Or a misdirect for any authorities who might be investigating. Or is Polis simply more than he appears? Is he more than just a guard? And instead, a ruler of an entire planet. In relation to the game design and why this happened, however, it should be noted that Polis is the map that was itself designed by Puffballs, so hence the connection from a real life logistics standpoint. It would make sense that Puffballs would want to place this Easter egg. So if, just let's say that these two games are set in the same universe, then in Among Us, where are the Stickmen? Are there Stickmen inside the Among Us suits? Or perhaps in the Stickmen games, there are Among Us crew inside the body of the Stick people? That seems less likely. Well, while we might not know about the Among Us crew and imposters in the games of Henry Stickmin, we do know about a specific kind of pet you can get in Among Us that ties the game even more to the world of Henry Stickmin. That is the Stick People Pet Pack. This gives you a small stick person buddy who follows you around while you do tasks on the ship. You're like walking around, they're there with you, you're like, ah, you're so cute. I'm gonna probably get killed soon. Hopefully you're gonna be an orphan, I'm sorry. My poor pets. Every time I get killed, I'm like, not my pets! My pets have no one. They're just gonna wait forever or be dead, tragically. Hopefully pets are never getting killed. That'd be so sad. The shocking thing is that these stickmen are so small. Among Us characters are actually 3'6", so they're pretty small. They're like here, which means that their pets who are around half the size or less are even smaller. They're very tiny and probably about, like, I imagine this big. I don't know how to measure feet because I'm in Canada, but I'm pretty sure I'm close. And you may have noticed with the stickmen that you appear to get a little version of what appears to be Henry or Ellie minus their faces. Although it could be that their faces are just simply too small for us to see without, zooming in on them closer. I wonder if we could zoom in if we'd see their faces, which the game, doesn't allow us to do. But if anyone can zoom in, enhance, or whatever people say. Enhancing is not a thing. Anyways, so the question is, if Henry and Ellie are these stick people, now how did they get here? And does this definitely confirm a strong enough connection for us to consider these games in the same world? Or do you still consider this is just an Easter egg, it's just a coincidence? Also, what does the size difference mean? Like, why are they so tiny in comparison? It could be that Henry and Ellie are both younger here and basically are the children of the Among Us crewmate that they're running around with. Perhaps Among Us is actually set in the past of Henry Stickmin, or perhaps Henry and Ellie are just being held captive and have been shrunk somehow, turned into the pets of these giants in terms of comparative size, and these menacing overlords. Either and also neither could be possible. Why? Why neither? Because ultimately Inner Sloth made both of these games, so any linking Easter eggs could be just a complete coincidence. Also, Henry Stickmin is known for its various Easter eggs to many games, which means that Inner Sloth could just be fans of, dropping Easter eggs everywhere. But it still makes us wonder. Some games that companies make are set in different worlds for sure. BioWare has Mass Effect and Dragon Age, which both seem quite separate. Although if you know a lot of things that maybe connect those, I'd love to hear about that. That seems crazy. Naughty Dog has Last of Us and Uncharted, which have a few references and linking Easter eggs that make you wonder, but nothing confirmed. And then you have games like Valve's Half-Life and Portal, which definitely appear to be in the same universe, although not quite in the exact same time period. When it comes to game links and Easter eggs in games made by the same company, it's always something up for interpretation.